Hello and welcome to Hanratty on Karate. So it's Remembrance Day here. I suppose it is in the UK as well. They still have Remembrance Day there. 11th of the 11th, 11th hour, the 11th day, the 11th month. And you remember people who had passed in the war. And I'm particularly always, observe Remembrance Day. I was a member of the Armed Forces. And so I changed my profile picture, usually show one in my dorky-looking uniform, my dress uniform, and that's the way it is. I didn't really get on in the army. I'm not used to taking orders that much, and I don't like the bureaucracy, if you like. People were promoted just because they'd been there a long time, not that they were any good at their job, because most of them weren't. But it's changed a lot since I was in, for sure. Now, I'd already been all around the world before I joined the army, so I had a little bit more street smarts than most of them going there. But you meet some interesting people, and I was looking at some people from the US forces and even the Canadian forces, and you get this thing in the airports and all that where they're allowed on the plane first, to thank them for the service and all that. And honestly, having been a member of the service, there's no more service there than there is in somebody who drives a truck for a living or drills oil wells or serves as a doctor or a nurse. Certainly not as much as somebody who serves as a doctor or a nurse, but this is my opinion. Now, you may think this is a glorified job, but to me, and this is again my opinion, the two biggest causes of war on the planet are religion and patriotism. And joining the army is usually something that people do. Not everybody. Some people, it's in their family, and these are usually officers. But your enlisted guys, they're just doing it to get out of a lousy unemployed situation, or for lack of anything better to do. Anyway, get off with that. I wanted to talk a little bit about Kata. Just needed to say that because it's Remembrance Day. I was teaching class the other day. I'm teaching all the classes this week because a lot of our senior guys are off in Okinawa training and doing a tour. There's some very good companies in Okinawa run by karate people for karate people. And so, you get really good value for money and a good trip. And I always maintain that travel is educational anyway, so it's always good. Now, well, in Okinawa, I tell them to, check out all the styles that are there. These were the base styles of karate. And, of course, karate evolved, and it evolved into different styles. There was no style originally in Okinawa, although people tell you there was Nahate and Shurite. Not really, okay? Naha and Shuri, two towns, and they're practically next to each other, all right? And you'll get all sorts of hoopla about kata is shuri or shurai. There's a mix of everything in every kata, in my opinion. People will spend hours and being very pedantic, really, on splitting hairs on what constitutes a light kata or a heavy kata. When you're doing the kata, you should be doing the techniques to your full capacity anyway, to the full potential of the technique, which is be to finish with one blow. It may not look like it when you're doing the slow movements, but the slow movements are there for training purposes, to show balance and strength, smoothness, and so on. Anyway, as I was saying, I've been teaching this week, and so what I decided I would do would teach Jitte, which is a nice short kata. And because at the last competition I wanted to do a little bit of a change with our team kata, and we did a little bit of a demo. What I did was I taught them a kata I'd learned years ago from one of Richard Kim's group called Chatanyara no Konsho. Really nice bow kata. Now, I don't do bow these days, but I think it was in '87 I won the Western Canadians Championship for Kabuto bow, and that was the kata I did, so it kind of stuck in my mind. Now, I could get my way through Sushi no Konsho if I had to, and a couple of others, but this was the one that stuck with me, Chatanyara. So I taught the kids and had them practice it, and then what we did was we did a little demonstration of the bunkai from the kata, which is not that hard, really. I mean, the bunkai basically is a demonstration. You set it up. It's like the bunkai you see in WKF kata when they do team kata and then they throw themselves all over the place. It's just a demonstration. It's no big deal. But when I was teaching Jitte, and I've done this before, and people will tell you, oh, Jitte is against the bow. You know, you got the power of 10 hands, Jitte, right? Or Jitte, whichever you like. So, yeah, it is powerful, and it can be against the bow. But what I found with it was, I find if I do it with a bow, then it turns into something entirely different. And this is a really interesting concept. So if you take the kata and you take a bow and you kind of do your rolling movement to start with, you do the kakato block. Well, I look at it on a strike. You press down with your left hand, stepping back, and then strike with the back of your right hand. This is the start of the kata. Now, I'm quite interested in bunkai for that, but as I say, bunkai is all what if, right? But it works really well with the bow. When you roll your bow over as you step back, and it's a definite strike. Then you step through and strike again. So it works really good with doing jitte with a bow. And to me, it makes a lot more sense to do it with a bow than without a bow. So it kind of begs the question, some of these katas, were they designed to be done with a weapon? And then what you got is somebody doing the form without a weapon. Maybe they lost their bow or something, I don't know. But it just begs the question for that, because there's a lot of movements in certain katas that you would almost do better if you had a weapon in your hand, right? But this is just an evolution of kata. And as I say, the guys are all going back to Okinawa, and I've got some pictures back of them training with traditional training instruments and, just stuff that, we don't normally do in our dojo. So the equipment that they use in Okinawa, ancient, the stones on the stick and grabbing the big jars for building up your grip. They're just doing all that sort of thing. It's kind of a trip back in history, and it's where, karate came from. Well, it was Tode at the time, and karate evolved from it when it came into Japan. And the Japanese, as I've said before, are great imitators, and they almost imitate to perfection. But having imitated something so well that it doesn't need anything else is also against a lot of people's principles, because if you teach somebody all that you know and they do it, and in many cases they can do it better, then what the temptation is to change it so that they never quite catch up. And I believe that's what's happening with a lot of things right now. I'm not saying that happens with everybody, because I've seen some great evolution in kata. In fact, I was looking at one today where a guy did it all from freestyle, and it looked really, really good. And it was only Heian Shodan where he did Oisuke Gyak all the way through it. Now, I've done changes in kata, and I'm sure everybody else has done, when you either do the kata backwards or from the opposite side, or you start with the last move and work forward. It's just so that we don't get stuck in constant repetition, which is good for practicing and everything else. But once you've got a technique down and you can make it work and you can put a lot of power behind it, just doing the kata, you tend to get a little bit bored. And I know my kids get a little bit bored. And the other thing is, for demonstrations, I tend to use different ways of putting the kata across, right? If you go to a competition, you're going to see loads and loads of 3 or 4 katas, because there's only 3 or 4 katas that they bring into competition, right? The others aren't showy enough, especially with WKF, all right? It's all the fast, flashy hand movements, super fast turns. None of them would get you out of trouble. But anyway, that's up to them. So what I do for demonstrations, I've done kata in reverse. And there's one demonstration online, and this was a few years ago, when I had a couple of my kids doing unsu. And one guy did a mirror performance of the other guy. Now, that takes a lot of work, because everybody's used to doing stuff when you're looking at a right-handed person and they generally put the left hand forward or they start from the left or whatever. And then switching it round, doing it from the right, it takes a fair bit of thinking, okay? Now, we had a kid that was just so ambidextrous, it was unbelievable. This guy could write 2 lines on a piece of paper, different lines, one with each hand. He was just a remarkable guy. And so I always used to get him to do the kata, the mirror version of what the other guy was doing. And it looks great when you do it with unsu. And you've got to look twice to see who's doing it the other way. But anyway, that was just for practice, and it was just for demonstration. It's a performance, if you like, not practical, okay? I mean, I'm not saying you won't meet a left-handed guy in a fight, but, you know, I think it's something like 80% of people are right-handed, and so, you know, you practice most stuff dealing with a right-handed person. So this would be a different way of putting kata across, but what I wanted to talk about was the evolution. And when you evolve something, or when something evolves, you usually try to evolve it in a way that improves the performance or improves the technique or makes the thing work better. And we don't always see that. And what you're going to get is people who just making improvements because they want to be different from anybody else. Not that it's going to make the kata any better or any different or anything more effective. Because kata in and of itself is not effective. It's a training tool, right? It's like doing jumping jacks. It's not effective, but they get your cardio up, okay? So the same thing is with kata. Unless you're learning the lessons and how to move your body, put power behind your techniques, going direct to the target, and very often I look at kata and I go, what the hell is that guy's target? What's he kicking at? Is somebody coming out the ceiling? I mean, it just doesn't look, I don't know, it just doesn't look like it would work. Not realistic, if you like. And then, of course, when you look at some of the katas, it's total ego, right? The guy is almost saying, ooh, look at me, you know. I can do this so good, or I can march in like this, and I hold the longest bow, and I'm going to come slowly to, you know, start position, and it's all ego. And I have a plaque in my dojo, beautiful piece of calligraphy. It was done by a friend of mine, and it's one of my mottos. It says, kata without ego, and form follows function. So these are the 2 mantras that I put forward when I'm teaching kata. And this, I think, would benefit a lot of people if they brought this into their daily training. Kata without ego, all right? Don't worry about making a mistake. You're always going to make a mistake. But don't stop. Carry on. Because if you're in a real fight, you can't say, oop, made a mistake. I meant to nail you in the nose instead of the throat. Doesn't matter. You got to carry on. You don't have a choice. It's the same when you're doing kata on your own. Always try to go through the whole thing, as long as you know the sequence. Go through the whole thing and then look for the pieces that you find are difficult and take them out and practice them until you don't find them difficult anymore. All right? You get familiar with them, get stronger with them, you get faster with them, and then you put them back into your sequence and you do your whole kata. But when you stand up, bow, and you name your kata, do the whole kata. Don't stop half bloody way and go, oh, I made a mistake, I'll start again. It doesn't happen in real life. And you practice how you want to perform, right? You want to be at your best. And this is the thing about karate. Whenever you need it, it better be the best technique you've got. You can't throw a half-assed technique around in real life, okay? So always practice to be at your best. And that's the same with your kata, okay? Kata's teaching you the basic movements. Don't ignore it. Practice them, build up power, build up speed, get familiar with it. If you ever have to use it, don't be surprised if it doesn't come out exactly like the kata, because your mindset will be different under a stress situation than it will in the dojo. But hopefully, muscle memory will kick in and you'll be able to do something that it may not be 100% of what you would do because of the pressure and all that, but it would be effective anyway, okay? Because if you train hard enough and you build up your power, you build up your strength, so you've got fantastic stopping power in your punches and all that, even if you're only firing at, say, 75, 80% under an adrenaline surge or emotional pressure, that's still going to be enough, hopefully, to stop them and not just annoy them. All right. So yeah, don't ignore your training. Don't ignore you trying to get your power up. Don't ignore trying to get your speed up. Work your kata like you want it to work. And yeah, you can do little innovations, little differences, just to get away from the routine of every day doing the same thing. You'll get bored, okay? And as I say, kata has evolved, but make sure it evolves to your benefit, not evolves just for the sake of changing, which is you're going to see a lot of, you know. And try be self-critical as well. And a lot of people aren't, but you know, try it. Do what you can. Criticize yourself, not to the point where you're tearing yourself apart. But let's face it, a lot of people can do what you're doing, whoever you are, even if you only just started as a white belt. Okay, not a lot of people are going to be that good. Okay, so you're already ahead of the game. Just stay ahead of it and keep the goal in mind. Is to get better every day, both in your karate and in your philosophy and in the way you look at the world. Okay, so any questions, then just let me know. Take care, and I say try and remember Remembrance Day. Some people made a lot of sacrifices. They didn't want to, but that's the way it is. Usually not too many politicians, I can tell you. All right, talk to you later.